In today's podcast, I want to connect some history on rental management system and relational databases and what the heck does all of that mean? Hey, before we get started, we have so many new listeners that may not know about the larger intentional success community. If you want to meet and network with a great bunch of folks that are open to sharing new ideas, and you want to learn more about how to apply my business model for live event production companies, then join us at Jumpstart Your Sales Engine in Atlanta, April 3rd and 4th. We're going to focus on the selling side of your business so you can grow, make more money, and have a lot more fun. Learn more at trstimson.com/jumpstart. Welcome to the Intentional Success Podcast, where we unpack the top strategies, explore business trends, and drill down into best practices to help your live events production business grow and scale on purpose. I'm your host, Tom Stimson. So, many years ago, when I first started working for a live event company, when I got started in the management side of the business, I didn't know much about rental management software. I knew it was there. I saw people with computers on their desks. Yes, we had computers back then. Come on, get with me here. So I knew they were doing something. They were entering stuff in, they were printing stuff out. There was information that they were interested in, and it was really all about equipment, right? What were they using back then? Well, there was some, the oldest software I remember Point that was designed for our industry. And it was really designed for all rental industries because, well, it's in the name. It was really about point of sale rentals. Um, and many softwares from that era are actually still around. But my earliest memory of my earliest aha moment in all of this, and a thing that was kind of the trigger point for me, was a company which is long gone, but probably well loved and well remembered, was Total Audio Visual Systems. TAVS was based in Atlanta, and in the early 1990s, they had built such a tight model around their rental management system. They were all about systems and processes. They were the early adopters of barcoding, right? It's like, wow, who the heck barcodes? And it was rental. And for somebody working on the outside trying to deal with them, it was really kind of insane because you couldn't get anything from them if it wasn't in their system. Matter of fact, if you were a salesperson for them, you couldn't write a quote if there wasn't equipment available in the system. It was very tightly tied to the rental model. So I thought, well, wait a minute. That's great if you're a rental company, but what if you do shows for a living, right? You don't always have the luxury of having everything you need in your rental system, right? There's things that you have to do that you're going to have to outsource. There's people you're going to have to hire, equipment you're going to have to subrent. It was interesting dealing with them from the outside, going, how do you guys get stuff done? But having said all that, wildly successful company, brilliant systems and processes, but did it track? Would it carry forward here into 2024? And yet, much of the software that we use today in rental management system works very much like their system way back in the day, 30 years ago, right? Now, there was other stuff going on back then. I've worked with so many companies. I've seen so many operating systems. Many of them were things that people built, right? FileMaker Pro for Mac. There wasn't really any software that would run on Macs until, the late 90s. So FileMaker Pro was a programmable tool that you could build any sort of project management system in. And so lots of companies use that. And the company I worked for, we actually developed our own software on a platform called 4D. When I was management, I often looked at other softwares. One, I wanted to see if there was something better that we were missing out on. There never was. But I also steal ideas and say, hey, that's a great feature. Can we use that? But mostly what I found when I looked at all these other systems is that, one, they were PC-based. They required a servers. Networks, updates, backups, all those things were part of what you had to deal with every single day. And they were very structured. You could not work around. They were designed to do one thing and do one thing well. And if you wanted to do something else, you had to do workarounds. Now, fast forward, ahead in time, you know, I think the next real trigger point for me was when Flex Rentals adopted their virtual model, their subscription system. When they finally made that entry, there were other light versions, there were other things coming online, but here's a company that doubled down on the idea. Um, and that created a lot of accessibility. So cloud-based systems opened up the market to more users. You didn't need to buy a $10,000 server. You could be a smaller company. You could have one or two users and have access to them. Light versions of software on servers became available and eventually became cloud-based. Subscriptions instead of purchases. We used to have to purchase the software and then pay for upgrades. Customizable reports, getting the company to develop a report that's specialized for your business, which, oh, by the way, I think is a horrific idea, though it sounds wonderful, but listen to me, right? Customization has always been a problem, right? When developers customize for a big user, for instance, and this has happened many times in our industry where fantastic platforms for rental management got a big client, a big buyer, and created a custom version for them, which stopped all development on current versions, messed things up, and they developed a system that's unique to an extremely large company. All the other users lose when that happens. It's unfortunate. It's a business decision. I understand why they did it. Would they do that today? No, probably not. We're in a very different era. We have a very different relationship with technology now. So either the program expands to too many features and complexity for average users, or the average user doesn't get the support they need because the dev team is focused on a big custom job. It's the bane, it's the challenge of being in the rental management development process, really developing any software. The more you react to users and respond to users, the less likely you are to support the original intent of the platform. You're going to go off in a lot of directions. But most companies have learned to manage this much, much better and be very clear about what they're willing to do and what they're not willing to do. And again, this is a 30-year journey, right? So we're much better at doing this. So going back to the origins of rental management software in the 70s and 80s, it was a rental system. Basically, it was about scheduling and availability. However, people wanted to use it for quoting and delivery. Well, of course they would. Why not? If you quote the equipment that you have, thinking back to the total AV model, it's in the system. The quote becomes the operational order. We prep the job and off it goes, right? It sounds wonderfully streamlined, right? But if we try to mimic the quoting and delivery life cycle that we use today, particularly in light of the fact that most of us are service companies that do shows for a living, which is not rental, but we're using a designed rental product. When we mimic the quoting delivery life cycle, okay, in RMS, we get a mini ERP, but we also get a lot of compromises because at the end of the day, rental is going to win because the baseline model is rental. So having said all that, I do love rental management systems. It is a love-hate relationship. But when we try and serve both the sell side and the delivery side of the business, while also trying to automate the flow of data from RMS to accounting, all sorts of crazy things start to happen. And the fact that accounting exists means it should always be its own platform. And that's a clue, right? When you try and integrate these two things, and I've seen it done successfully, but mostly I've seen it done poorly, you're missing the whole point of accounting systems. Never mind. Let's get back to this. The reports. From a rental standpoint, reports are cool. We get utilization, availability, downtime, transfers, right? I can have depots, I can do packages, I can do kits. It's all useful for a large organization to keep track of how it's doing, where its assets are, right? And how to transfer things. It's a scheduling tool. Fantastic. But with typical rental management software concepts, we lost touch As we gained all these capabilities, we lost touch with what things cost. Now I'm getting riled up here. The working model was price less discount. The rental management software systems mirrored how rental companies sold, which was a retail price. And as we became more and more service companies, we had to have discount tiers for our different channels. So it's all built around a working model of price less discount. It focused on availability and usage, which were rental concepts, but not show concepts. And this adversely affected selling. It created the divide that became the sales versus operation battle that we're all familiar with, right? My philosophy is operations job is to sell whatever sales, support whatever sales sells, and sales job is to sell what operations supports. But that requires that you have a balanced, scalable, integrated organization that's well managed. Okay? If you run them as silos, as many companies do, you're going to get sales versus operation, and the battleground is the rental management software. So if your capacity constraint is equipment, what does that say about you? What does that say about your talent pool? Now, capacity constraints are not a big deal anymore, right? We know we've got wholesale subrentals. We could address the equipment constraint. We've got all sorts of talent suppliers out there we can outreach to, freelancers, booking agencies. These things all come with a cost. And if that cost change, well, sometimes you go in and change your price. You change your price in the rental management system because, oh my goodness, 9x16 screens have gone up in price. I better raise my retail rate. Great idea. Okay. However, did you raise it in time? Now, labor, on the other hand, talent, there's always been someone cheaper, right? We didn't change our sale price. We just looked farther down. We just looked farther to find cheap workers. And the cheapest workers we could find were people that we could hire full time and convince ourselves that they were less expensive when we used them on shows because we never counted all the time when they weren't on shows. That's another podcast. So back to my trigger point here. When we adopted rental software to run a service business, we blurred the line between rental and services. And these should have been distinct. Rental's actually really easy. Either you have it or you don't. If you promise it and you don't have it, you got to scramble to go get it, and it hurts because it costs you money. But sometimes, if you don't have it, you just have to pretend you have it in order to win the order. So that's a strategic choice. Now, is that rental? Right? If you promise something that you don't know where it's going to come from, are you a rental company or are you a service company? Old school rental would run out and buy the missing equipment. Rental's great, right? You rented something, you don't have it, you over rented it, great, go buy some more because that's money, right? You're going to rent it again. That's how you grow a rental business. Get more assets, rent them more times. This is the strategic rental model choice. Now, of course, you, my longtime listeners, know that leads to the death spiral of unprofitable selling if you are a service company, because now you have assets that you have to keep using, you have overhead that goes with them, and you constantly have to sell, you constantly have to have the revenue churn in order to service all that debt, all that cash flow. Services means shows or at least integrated orders. The sum of the parts has more value in an integrated order or show. Okay, we're not just cost plus, cost plus, cost plus. Putting it all together, making it all work together, putting the right things has more value than a rental order plus labor. A system for tracking leads, building opportunities, and putting quotes together should be distinct from the system for allocating gear to an order, which is reservations. And in fact, we used to call these reservation systems quite often. So what have we learned from all this, right? There's a lot of data in your rental management software, right? I think 80% of the data we collect is data for data's sake. Not only does no one use most of it, few know how or why it's even there. It's like the hundreds of line items that we put on a rental quote. who do we do that for? And do they care? I think we do it for ourselves personally. But look, rental management software is an important tool if you are a rental company. Okay? But we need to move beyond the constraint of rental if we're going to service our clients. What we need is a scheduling tool that assigns assets where needed, flexibly. I mean, your needs change, your assets are fluid, and actually they are nearly unlimited if you think about it. So as a thought exercise, what if you never opened up your rental management software until it was time to assign or schedule assets? That is, after the job was confirmed or likely to be confirmed. What would your workflow look like? What would you need, right? Now, we know we need to keep track of leads and opportunities. Sure, it would be important for others in the company to see what opportunities are in play. But outside of sales, we are mostly interested in projects that will likely occur. Most CRM or project management platforms will handle all of that. They'll handle everything before reservations. Okay. Once an opportunity advances and we need to develop quotes or budgets, what is the best tool for that? If you rush to your rental management software to open it up to write a quote, you're going into a rental system to design a service. But the thought exercise is don't go into the rental management system yet, right? So while most RMS is designed to quote, it is also designed to constrain the person building the quote. It says, hey, use what's available because rental. Now, most CRM or project management platforms could become the budget creation tool. I mean, RMS is not a sales tool unless you are a rental vendor. However, once you have sold the job, you will need to schedule assets and fulfill outsourced needs. And all of a sudden, your RMS system becomes critical to your operation. RMS is now the supplier for the job that you sold. Your selling team has defined the needs and outcomes of the project. Your planning team now needs to procure the assets to make that happen. Whether they're internal or external assets, rental management software is designed to build and schedule that and share that information. But so is CRM and project management systems. So in addition to all of this, you also need accounting systems, which may or may not be integrated in above. My point is there's a love-hate relationship with rental management system that is decades old. But here we are. We have reached a level of understanding and sophistication in our growth about how our businesses work that we should know by now how to and when to use the right tool at the right time. So back to the tipping point of history, it was not the advent of rental management software or even the incredible capabilities of today's supercharged sophisticated programs. The tipping point is that when we transition from a rental-based industry to becoming service providers, we miss the opportunity to evolve beyond the tools at hand. We ask too much of rental management software and reservation systems, and we miss the opportunity to develop customer support tools so that we could sell better, sell smarter. Now, having said all that, RMS is not the problem. How we use it can be, right? I've never seen a project order system on any platform that couldn't be adapted to supporting if you just set aside the notion of rental and focus on how to manage services. So you can quote and sell out of rental management software separate from the reservation system if you just put your mind to it. It's a tool. Learn how to use the tool. So I just want to wrap this up by saying we need to get away from thinking of rental management systems and think about service management systems. And in fact, if you will view the software you're using now as a service management system and figure out when you need to get into it, okay, I think you'll have a different relationship with it. You'll be far more successful, and we will have learned something from the history, the 35-year history of rental software and where we should be today. So I hope this was fun. I hope this gives you food for thought. I always welcome your feedback. Thanks for listening. If you want to find out more about today's episode, go to trstimson.com/podcast, where you'll find the show notes, related links, and tons of other valuable resources. If you haven't already subscribed to the Intentional Success Podcast, please do so, and I'd greatly appreciate if you would rate and review the show. Also, if you think you might be a good fit to work together or want more information about the Stimson Group, I'd love to hear from you. Visit trstimson.com for more information.